Yeah, our client was tortured by SFC. He's seeking medication. He will be back to answer court charges as soon as he is through with his medication. What's important now is to restore his life. He didn't breach any bail terms and he will come back. So the issue of not coming back does not arise. If we are not to come back, the law is very clear also. There is money that would be required to be paid by him and the sureties and so on and so forth. But that's not something I see. I expect my client to come back and answer the charge. I'm sure he's not going to die and he's out because of medication. So he will come back. What he's talking, he has been saying, nothing new, he has been saying it from here. Yes, it caused him a problem, but he's not afraid of problems. He will come and face those people who want to see him face to face. I mean, just because a client has said this or that word doesn't mean he's not going to come back. As I said, he uses a lot of figurative speech, but that doesn't stop him from moving about in Uganda when he's healthy. The reason he's out is because of his ill health visited on him by the military. Once he recovers his health, he will be back, regardless of what he says, how he says it, and regardless of whom it is directed to. Yes, rulings can be challenged from anywhere. You don't need to be in Uganda to initiate or continue legal proceedings. So there is nothing that's going to stop in terms of legal proceedings just because my client is sick and seeking medication, because even when he was tortured in a vegetable state, he was in Chitaria appearing by video conference anyway. Not more, once, not twice. So the cases are going to continue and the law will take its course. Yeah, that he blinded himself to the evidence of torture before him, simple, and that he's continuing he wants a purported trial of a torture victim, which is not allowed under Human Rights Enforcement Act of 2019. My client is free to come back. He will exercise his freedom to come back as soon as his health is restored, which SFC took away.
You can be able to track him and report to court. My sister told me that since coming out of court, his condition had worsened, and those parts that were injured had started getting rotten, and that desperate situation compelled him to find means of exiting Uganda so that he can get appropriate and befitting medical treatment. It will be recalled that Mr. Kakawenza had indicated to court that all he wants to do is to go for treatment. All these other things that people are saying are mere embellishments. What he wants is to go and get appropriate medical treatment. As we speak, the Speaker of Parliament is in the USA for treatment. Just a few weeks ago, the Governor Bank of Uganda died in a foreign hospital. Just as the former Minister of Ethics died in a foreign hospital. What you take from this is that our medical facilities, I'm not talking about medical doctors, but our medical facilities do not have the capacity and the competence to treat, first of all, to properly diagnose, and then equipment to treat the patients. So it is in a country like that where it is common knowledge that a person cannot get proper treatment. When a person asks to go and get proper treatment, he's not asking for a sacrifice of an elephant, he's not asking for a sacrifice of a camel, no, not even a goat. He's only saying, I want to go for treatment, and that's what he said. So he has gone for treatment. That's according to my sister, and I know once he's properly diagnosed, once he's properly treated, and once he heals, he'll come back to stand trial. One thing you all have to understand is that this is not a serious charge. And even a first-year law student will tell you these charges are empty and hollow, not winnable. So there is nothing for him to fear about this. Of course, there is intimidation, there is bullying, but that, as you might have observed, is a man who doesn't care, even if he's willing to put his life on the line. So he doesn't, I don't think that is too much for him. So He has gone for treatment, and I know he's going to come back. I didn't see any abuse. As a lawyer, we have what we call expression of opinion. And anybody who has read, who has been following this whole story, I think must be understanding and accommodative of Mr. Kakawenza. Why? Because Mr. Kakawenza, unlike many of us, suffered the torture. It's Mr. Kakawenza's body which was mutilated with pliers. It was Mr. Kakawenza's nails that were plucked out with pliers. It is Mr. Kakawenza who was caned and maimed, if you allow me the term. So when a person goes through that, it's only him who knows what motivates him. And like we can be accommodative of murderers, if we can be accommodative of people who go and have relationships out of marriage, which does not affect the body, how about a man who suffered imprisonment for a month? How about a man who is asking to go for treatment and can't get it? So it's just an expression of opinion, of course, and it only tells of his frustration with the whole situation. Going to get treatment is not a crime. And I've read the order, I don't see anywhere in the order where they say don't go for treatment. The learned magistrate indicated that he can get that treatment here, but he didn't say that he can't get it elsewhere. And if the presumption was that a person can only go out of the country using a passport, maybe this should guide in future. There is no order which was passed barring Mr. Kakawenza from going wherever he pleases to get treatment. Now, if he has gone and he has managed to go without a passport, it should inform future action. You know, there is always an advantage. It's a learning process. And if it is something that is being taken from here, then it is fine. We saw in the case of Mumbere, the judge who granted bail to Mumbere indicated that don't go to Kasese, stay within Kampala. There was no order directing Mr. Kakawenza to stay within Kampala. So there is no crime that he has committed, and two, a proper explanation to court that he's out of the country to get treatment is sufficient and satisfactory. Why? Because without an order barring him to go, that's one. And two, it's not that every time a case is adjourned, it takes off. Court is accommodative of events that we call force majeure, whereby if a person is not in a position to attend court for reasons beyond him, then that person can be accommodated. So I believe on the day that that court will be sitting, Mr. Kakawenza's lawyer, who I respect, will be in a position to explain to court that Mr. Kakawenza has not run out of the country, but he has gone for treatment and is hoping to come back after proper treatment.
Thank you. My name is Musangala Simon Peter, an advocate of the High Court. To begin with, bail is a creature of the Constitution, and every person who is accused of having committed a crime and is brought before court is entitled to apply for bail. And the court handling the bail case or the matter is endowed or given discretion to apply, I mean to grant bail. When granting bail, courts consider a number of things. They consider the gravity of the offense, they consider the nature of the case, they consider, of course, the rights of the accused person at the time, and so forth. Now, definitely bail is an agreement between the accused person and the state or the court, that at any time they need you, you will definitely appear in court. Now, under the law, the court is mandated to take what we call a cognizance or something to do with the security to deposit in the court to ensure that it will force you to come back to court next time. For example, you can be ordered to deposit a land title. You can be ordered to deposit a passport. You can be ordered to deposit your national ID, among other things. Right? Now, the courts also, the court can actually tell you to deposit cash. To deposit cash bail, okay, in court. For example, court can tell you, for you to get bail, you must deposit 20 million. What does that mean? If you fail to deposit the 20 million, then you will not be granted the bail. Court will also oblige you to bring sureties which they must substantiate to say that they are substantial. And those sureties are also given obligations. The obligations of a surety is to ensure that he compares or reminds the accused person to report to court any time when is needed. For example, if an accused person has jumped bail, let me say the matter has been slated for the 10th of today, and the accused person does not appear in court, then it is a duty of the sureties to bring this person to court. If the sureties fail to bring the accused person to court, and let me say jumps 3 times, then now the court will enforce the bond that they put on the sureties. For example, we have this case of Mukono. We had a murder case in Mukono, I think, the famous Kirabo case. The sureties were bonded to pay 50 million. The mother, you remember, I think the mother of the accused person, 50, yes, the mother, 50 million. And when the accused person failed to turn up in court, court gave them 2 conditions. You either bring the accused person to the next hearing, or you pay the money to the state. Now, once the surety pays that, or fails to bring the accused person, then if they pay, then they would have discharged their obligation. And now court directs and says, okay, you have discharged your duties as a surety. Now the state, it gets back now to the state to look for the accused person to ensure that the accused person faces the wrath of the law. Should the sureties fail to bring the accused person in court, then they are under an obligation to pay the cognizance that was bonded on them. Should they fail to pay, then they are definitely the state definitely charges them, and they can actually be remanded to prison for failure to, because they had a duty, they had an agreement with the court or with the state that we know this person, we know him, he will be able to come and attend the court. Now that he has failed, so you go to prison because of him until they meet the cognizance, the money they are supposed to pay. There are repercussions for failure to follow bail terms. The first one, and which is most important, is that your bail can be cancelled. And the moment your bail is cancelled, you will automatically be remanded, and henceforth your case will be heard while you are in prison. Secondly, once you are barred, for example, from talking to the media about the case, and you do, then court on its own discretion can actually charge you for what we call contempt of court, because you would have disobeyed court's what? Directive. To begin with, about Kakwenza's issue, I don't know where he is, okay? However, you know that in East Africa, we have countries that permit us to move with our national IDs, national identification cards. For example, you don't need a national identification card to travel to Kenya. You don't need a passport to travel to Kenya. You just go through your ID, and there you go. So it again depends on the bail terms. Okay? Was Kakawenza barred from traveling out of the country? I have not read his. Was he barred from traveling out of the country? Has he jumped bail? When is he supposed to come to court? I think some of these issues will seriously be raised if he fails to turn up at the next hearing date. But as far as legally, if your movements have not been restricted to move out of jurisdiction, and you have left you have deposited your passport in court, and you have other means to move, I think you are able to move, because as I've told you, we have so many avenues of movements. We have so many, and the other thing which I think is a challenge, for example, in our state, which is not, we are not yet advanced, that assuming you have been required to deposit your passport in court, the question is, do they put the immigration department on notice that this person, his passport is here, so is barred from going out? Mere depositing a passport in court is not a bar, is not a curtailment of somebody's freedom to move, because I believe there are other avenues of moving. So if he fails to turn up in court at the next convenient session, then I believe the sureties definitely have obligations to perform to court. Perhaps, of course, I don't know the relationship he has with his lawyer, but perhaps his lawyer will have to explain his way about. Because you see, sometimes things happen in the media which are not actually true. So we shouldn't speculate. Personally, I will not speculate as a legal mind. I will wait until he fails to turn up in court, then you begin concluding that perhaps he has disappeared forever. Otherwise, should he jump bail, an arrest warrant can be issued against him and he can be arrested anywhere he is. His sureties can actually be arrested if they fail to produce him. 3, if they fail to pay the bond fees which they, in this current state, if they do, if it is true, he has gone out of the country and he misses court the next time it comes up, then the sureties will be given, will have to fulfill the conditions as I have explained.
Article 99 of the Constitution of Uganda does enjoin the president to follow the Constitution and to defend it at all times while governing the people of Uganda. And Article 24 of this Constitution states that nobody has a right to torture any Ugandan. Therefore, the torture of Kakawenza was illegal. The torture of the boy from Kasese, I forget his name, was illegal. All kinds of torture that we have seen happening in Uganda. The law also says that the rights that Ugandans enjoy in Article 20 are inherent to them. They are God-given rights. They are not rights that are awarded to them by the state or by other people. They are rights that are inherent in them. So what government needs to do is for us to go back to our constitutional means of living, where we respect the rule of law and where we know that the law is supreme to everybody. Article 21 says we are all equal under the law. So we should all respect the law as it is, and the supreme law of the land is the Constitution. Ideally, in a society, we should have culture. We should have values. We should have things that we stand for. So I should not come from somewhere and just call you stupid. We were raised in ways of where we understand that we should respect other people. We can disagree in principle, but abusive language, we would try as much as possible to keep away from it. However, should it happen that you, a person in leadership, is abused with immense words, whatever the amount of words they are, the best way to resolve conflict is by going to court, not by torture, not by beating, not by any other means. The only way to resolve conflict with a person who has abused you is by going to court, and let court decide, is it a crime worth the person going to prison? Is it worth compensation? Is it worth reconciliation? Let court decide. The reason why we have courts is to arbitrate between two warring sides. So the best thing is, every time there is a disagreement, other than take the law into your hands, let us have the court decide. One of the things that the president needs to do at this point is to come back to the public and explain that him as commander-in-chief and head of state, he believes in the constitution, he believes in the rule of law, and he will move as the constitution does provide for him. The constitution provides for him to defend it all the time as the head of state. And in Article 24, which I've just quoted for you, Article 20, Article 21, all these articles enjoin him to stand by the courts and court procedures and the rule of law. So he should remember these articles, come back, re-emphasize them for his men in uniform. Remembering 1996, when the Bush War had just ended, the president came with what he called the Code of Conduct under the Legal Notice number 1 of 1986. It was the first time the military was being instituted to follow rules and regulations that were stipulated in a constitution. Before them, the military had leeway to do anything and everything they wanted. But when the NRM came, they set a pace. They said even the military will have to obey the law. And I think this is where the president needs to go back. The president needs to come back to this place where he says the law is supreme to us all, and we all need to respect law, and we need to respect the rule of law. Nkulembeze akawairo ka kyenda mu kyenda akasemateeka kagamba omukulembeze wa Uganda banamuyitanga president anatambuliranga ku semateeka ate president analwanirira semateeka ono alabe nti amuteeka muki mu nkola. Semateeka mukusomedde ne mukugamba mu 24 nti tosobola kutulugunya mu Uganda ate toyina buyinza mu mutulugunya, oba oli musirikale, oba oli military, oba oli army, oba oli president. Kwa ne president naye eteeka awo mu 9 eri muwa obuyinza olw'okutula mu ntebero. Ligamba nti president ajja kufaayo nnyo okulaba nti amateeka gakoleramu. Kakati president yandibadde avaayo nazaamu bannayuganda obuyinza obubagamba nti semateeka akyakolera ddala nga bwe yava mu nsiko okujja okuteekawo semateeka waali ate semateeka akyakola ate tugenda kutambulira ku semateeka kuba bwe tuba tetuli ku semateeka tuba tuzzeeyo mu budde buli bwe baddukamu nga bagamba tugende mu nsiko kubanga Amina asazeewo nti tukolera ku degree.
Omukulembeze w'eggwanga alina taito endala ey'ekitiibwa semateeka gye mukakatako nga ye commanding chief of security forces and fountain of honor, oba omuntu asingayo nnyo ekitiibwa mu ggwanga. Omulimu gwa president nga commanding chief of the security forces ate ng'omuntu akute ekitiibwa ky'eggwanga. Ebikolwa bya security biri mu ngalo ze. Enneeyisa y'abamaje, enneeyisa ya police eri mu ngalo ze kubanga ye mukulu waabwe direct. Bwe begenze bulungi abantu balaba ekitiibwa semateeka kye yamukakatako. Bwe babeeyisa bubi nga kati nga bwe beeyisa atyobola ekitiibwa ky'eggwanga. Era n'okukwata abantu abageze abatyobola eddembe ly'obuntu n'asigala era nga bapromotinga nga bawa ekifo atyobola ekitiibwa semateeka kyemuteekako ky'eggwanga. Mwami Museveni nze mbadde musaba anoonye abantu abatalina musaayi gw'Abannayuganda ku ngalo yaba bateeka mu bifo bakole emirimu gy'ayagala. Naye okugamba nti bano kati alinga agamba nti nze abatuma okutulugunya abantu byakola okubateeka mu bifo ebinene. Agamba nti yabatuma era n'Abannayuganda bagaba bategeere nti omukulembeze w'eggwanga togendera ku kintu kyayogera, ogendera ku bikolwa. Ebikolwa biraga opposite.